The subject of the conference is how can young Moroccan students contribute to the development of Morocco? And we are very lucky to have with us Professor Rachid Guerraoui, who leads EPFL Distributed Computing Laboratory. He had worked with renowned institutions such as Atomic Commission of Saclay, HP Labs in Palo Alto, and MIT. He has also contributed to Morocco's new development model and is a member of the advisory board of UM6P. This conference is a result of a joint effort between the Moroccan Society of Imperial College, EPFL Moroccan Society, also called APML, Polytechnique Paris, MIT, and UM6P. Thank you for attending this conference. We invite you to provide feedback in the comment section and let us know which speaker would you like to see in future events.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for this fantastic initiative. I'm impressed by your professionalism, but let's not say more. Let's wait until it works until the end. But so far, so good for the first 6 minutes. I'm really impressed. So thanks for the invitation. Before starting, let me tell you the way this is going to work. If I understand correctly, I will give you a short introduction, well, a short, a 15 minutes introduction. Then I will try to address the question you sent. Many of you have sent very interesting questions. And then we will open the floor to lively discussion. And the plan is to finish in exactly 44 minutes, 43 minutes at 8 p.m. Swiss time, French time, because people need to eat, and this will be the floor time. So I'm going to talk to you on 5 different axes, addressing 5 different questions that I asked myself, or more precisely, I have been thinking about. The first thing, and it's very important, what I'm going to be saying today is really based only on my experience and my own thinking about the topic. This doesn't represent the members of the Commission of Nouveau Model or EPFL or whatever organization I have been working with. This is solely based on my work, my life experience, and those of you who do data science know that this will be very biased. So it's a very biased sample based on a very, very narrow experience. It turns out that I have been asking myself about this question, how to contribute to Morocco's development, where you are a Moroccan abroad or where you're a student, etc. So indeed, I have been discussing this with colleagues at the Commission du Nouveau Modèle. I have even written a book about what it means to be Moroccan. The book is called Ainsi parler, l'Hassan El Hussein. It's on Amazon, and it summarizes many of my thinking on the topic. But let me insist that this is really the point of view of a non-professional in economy. My field is algorithms. I'm not professional in economy or in development, or I'm not a shrink knowing what the student have in their mind. So keep this in mind, and this is something you have to think about when analyzing what I'm saying. It's a very modest point of view. This is point number 1. There are 5 points I will address in this introduction. Second point, why would you want to contribute to the development of Morocco? I guess if you are attending this talk, maybe you have asked yourself the question, and you are interested, but you may want to ask yourself why you want to do that. And I see 2 reasons. One extremely objective reason is that I believe you are indebted. Vous êtes redevable. Why are you indebted? Because your family has invested in you, your country has invested in you, and somehow you have this debt. Okay, so vous êtes redevable. Sometimes some students tell me, no, I'm not indebted because my parents paid my studies in Morocco. I went to private school and then I went to La Mission. But think about it for a minute. Where did your parents bring the money to pay your studies? Where are they working? If they're working in Morocco, then definitely you are indebted still, because that money, those means come from Morocco. So vous êtes redevable, like it or not. And this is the first objective reason why you should consider contributing to the development of Morocco. There is another reason, which I think is even more important, is because it feels good. It feels good to contribute to Morocco for a very selfish reason. In fact, many of you, of course, are still young. I looked at the poll. I think 100 minus 46, 44 definitely are students. You are still maybe not in that situation in your life when you start looking at yourself back in the history, and you say, oh, maybe I'm helping the person who I was before. So when you contribute to the development of Morocco, sometimes you contribute to yourself, your family. When I was a student, for example, sometimes we used to go and clean the beach of Walidia, which was my favorite beach. And it feels good because it's concrete. You say, I did something concrete. Sometimes you don't see the realization immediately, but believe me, it feels good. So if the first argument, vous êtes redevable, doesn't fly, think of the second. It feels good to contribute in the development of your country, because this is basically yourself, your family, your parents, places you love, and that's important. So that's the second question. Now, the third question, now that we agree, well, at least those of you who will stay probably agree that indeed it makes sense to contribute to the development of Morocco, let's ask the third question. As a student, how you would contribute to the development of Morocco? And here, again, there are two axes or two answers. One almost obvious, which is, oh, you can, for example, you can do videos in your favorite fields and share your knowledge with others. This is obvious and very important. I had a student, Mehdi Mhamdi, a very bright student from Leaks, who was doing a PhD with me, who together we recorded various videos trying to share our knowledge with others. We did that in Darija. And for example, we had a video on an Infijar al-Adim. What is the Big Bang? Looking at discussions on the web, many people are against the Big Bang without knowing what it means. We did a video on Nadariyat Tatawwur, the theory of l'évolution. Again, because we have noticed that on the web, many people were against the theory without understanding what it was. So that was his participation, and I think it's extremely useful. This is something you can do as a student because you know something and you share your knowledge. You can also contribute by creating associations like the one you are doing, some of you are doing at Imperial College, Polytechnique, hopefully at MIT and other places. So these are obvious things. I would say obvious because many people think about them, but I think you should do them. But there is another one, which is be the best in your field. I think this is how you can contribute as a student. Be the best in your field. You are extremely lucky. Sometimes you don't realize it, but you are extremely lucky. Whether you are at Polytechnique or at UM6P or at EPFL, you are part of a very, very, very small percentage of the world population who somehow achieved to be there. So try to get the best of it, the best of your studies by pushing your limits. For example, if you are about to get an engineering degree, try to think of a PhD. We have to remember that it's only in France and in very few countries that the engineering degree is the highest. In many other countries, you go to Scandinavia, to the US, to Germany, to Switzerland, the PhD is the most important degree. And this is something you should consider, especially because in nowadays, there are other countries like India, China, and others that are producing hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of engineers who are probably going to do similar things than what you are going to do. So try to push your limit further, try to specialize. Having a PhD, for example, on privacy in machine learning is extremely important. Une thèse en désalinisation de mer or green hydrogen or things like that are extremely important. Of course, they're going to be very valuable to Morocco, but these are important things. And besides engineers from China and India, there is artificial intelligence coming, and it's going to replace many of the activities that we are doing. So if you don't specialize in some, I would say, high-level areas, maybe your degree, even if it comes from X or EPFL or whatever, might be replaced by some chat GPT 4 or 10 or 20 or sometimes in the near future. So push your limits. You have the opportunity to study. If you don't have economical constraints, push your studies to their limit. So this is the second thing. But it's important to indeed try to be the best, but being the best doesn't mean saying you are the best. Sometimes I receive resumes of students telling me, I did this, I'm from Polytechnique, I'm from MIT, I'm from this, and this is the best school in the world or whatever. You don't need to say it. Your mother will say it, definitely, and let other people say it. It's not up to you to say it. So keep a low profile. Just work hard and keep your profile low. Let other people say you are very good. Don't say it yourself. If I miss the fact that you are from Polytechnique or from whatever, I will see it later. You don't need to remind me. This is number 2. So number 3, how can you contribute to the development of Morocco as a student? I am saying the most important is to be the best, is to make the most of the investment that has been made on you, either by your family or by your government or whatever. You have to take the best of it. And the worst thing you can do is stay in your room because you passed your exam and play video games or watch TV series. I think that's a disaster. You are in a unique opportunity to learn, so do learn in your field or in what is called soft skills. I don't like the word. Improve your French or English. So let me remind you. The second question I asked is, why would you, for those who came late, why should you care about the development of your country? And I'm saying this is important because you are indebted, redevable, but also because it feels good. The third question I asked is, how can you do it as a student while you are a student? And the answer, I believe, is the most important, is try to be the best. I will come back to the ambassador role later, be the best also because you are ambassador. Now, after the studies, many of you are finishing or will finish soon, or according to the poll, many of you have already finished. Now, there is a fundamental question that one might ask is, do I need to go to Morocco or do I need to stay in Morocco for those from UM6P, or is it better, or should I stay elsewhere abroad, or should I feel guilty if I stay abroad? Let's start with the first option, and this is my point number 4. Going to Morocco or staying in Morocco. I think indeed Morocco has several defaults, if you want, and things that we don't like. Obviously, there are many. We can enumerate them. But there is one I think you need to be aware of. There is a culture in Morocco about valuing, considering diplomas with a very high value. And this is something we cannot question. If you look at the recent history of Morocco, there is something, either we inherited it from Qarawiyyin or from the French colonization, but the diplomas are considered extremely important. Of course, families, they lead to debt to pay the studies of their kids. This is the first sign. And why do they do that? Because they know that in Morocco, this is considered valuable. Indeed, there is patronage and clientelism in all other aspects. But if you come with a good degree, I have a hard time believing that you will not get a good job. Look at the current government. I'm really impressed to see how many people have very high degrees and do not necessarily come with very rich families. Nadia Ftah, for example, she's from HEC. She doesn't come from a very rich family. Her father was an orphan. He worked hard. He entered École des Mines, and now Nadia Ftah is Minister of Finance. She has a HEC degree, so the diploma matters. If I look at Shakib Ben Moussa from Polytechnique, Rita Nzour, École Polytechnique de Lausanne, Maria Nzour, École Polytechnique de Zurich, Leila Ben Ali, École Mohammedia Centrale. If you look at key positions in Morocco, like the CEO of OCP is from MIT, the president at UM6P is from Polytechnique. You look at the cabinet de conseil, Mackenzie is full of people from HEC and ESSEC. Valence is the same. I like to think that BCG is the same. So it is a country which values diploma. So if you have a diploma and you go to Morocco, believe me, it's not like many other countries where they wouldn't care about your diploma. Only patronage and clientelism will work. So Morocco has this thing which favors you. So going there makes sense from that perspective. Of course, Morocco is a nice country. And in fact, I have been recently in Tarazout, and I have seen people working from Tarazout because they like to serve for companies and they were not Moroccans, for Google, Oracle, Facebook, etc. They work remotely from those places. So this is also something you have to keep in mind. If other people are doing that, so there is a reason the country is nice and it attracts many people. So this is another factual reason why you should consider doing that. Now, it is important if you make that choice to stay in Morocco or to go to Morocco, to not lie to yourself or lie to others. I sometimes hear students saying, oh, I came back to Morocco to help my country, and my country doesn't allow me to help it or to do this or that. No. If you decide to go to Morocco, to stay to Morocco, you have to be again selfish. You do it because you want to stay close to your family, you want to have good weather, you want to have smooth conditions because the family is there, they're going to take care of the kids, or because of the friends, or because you want to get away from the racist ambience in Europe. But don't lie to yourself and say, I'm going there because I want to help, and therefore I'm expecting people to do whatever I want because I sacrificed. No, if you are in this mode, then don't go to Morocco, because you will be full of frustration and you will frustrate people. So do it for a selfish reason. And what I just pointed out is there are selfish reasons. This is point number 4. I'm getting to point number 5, and hopefully I won't be over the limit. So now, if you don't stay in Morocco, and this is a recurrent question, does it mean that you are betraying your country, that you are a bad citizen? Absolutely not, especially with the current world, which is somehow a completely open world with this mondialization. Obviously not. And here, I have many examples. I will mention maybe 3. One example is a friend of mine in Lyon, Teddy Mamri, who has made his career in Lyon, and now he's a big accountant in Lyon. He has one of the biggest offices in Lyon. What he did recently is to create part of his company in Casablanca. He did it because he likes Morocco, but also he did it for selfish reasons, because he found good people he could hire in Morocco, and it enabled him to go to Morocco. And this is crucial, because what we badly lack in Morocco is employment. How do you employ people? So if you do what he just did, this means that the market is a French market, European market, but he's employing people with a high added value. Accounting is a high added value. So this is an amazing situation where his business is in France, but part of his company is in Morocco, and he's doing something extremely concrete while being selfish. He goes to Morocco whenever he wants, he sees his family, and this is part of his job. A similar situation in Switzerland, a former student of mine created a logistic company with some IT-oriented, and recently he created, I think, some subsidiary somewhere in Morocco, I don't remember where. Again, the same scheme. The market is in Europe, but he's employing Moroccans in Morocco who are actually finding good jobs, getting good salaries, etc. But even when you don't do that, there are other ways of contributing. For example, it can be some simple things. You help other Moroccans find internships in Europe, or you just go to vacation there, etc. But to conclude, let me tell you about the Kirghiz War. I don't know how many of you know about this war. I discovered that war recently. I was just looking at some pieces of the history. I think this is the last war between Pakistan and India. I think it's very recent, 1999 or 8 or something. I don't quote me on the number. After the division between India and Pakistan, many frustrations were born, raised by the British when they left. They divided India into 2 parts, Pakistan and India, and they kept fighting. And the last fight was Pakistan invading mountains that they considered to be part of their land. Of course, Indians fought back, and Pakistan believed that the US, which was ally of Pakistan, will help them get back those mountains. But Bill Clinton asked actually the Pakistanis to get back. And it was very surprising to the Pakistanis why Bill Clinton asked them to do that. And in fact, there is one theory that explains that this is because of the Indian lobby in the Senate and the Congress in the US. There are many Indians with very good positions, as you probably all know, in Google, Facebook, and all those big companies, and they actually contributed significantly in winning a war. So this is something amazing. Of course, we know other diasporas who did that, but this is an Indian diaspora that 30 years ago was even considered by the Indian government as a diaspora that was bringing only troubles, and they contributed to winning a war. So staying abroad doesn't necessarily mean you are not working for Morocco or contributing to
A lot of people joined in the meantime. So on behalf of all the organizers, the Moroccan Society of Imperial College London, EPFL, APML, Polytechnique Paris, MIT, and UM6P, I would like to thank you all for coming here. But this event is not done yet. Actually, we received more than 300 sign-ups and more than 200 questions that we tried to sum up into a few questions that we will ask in the next 15 minutes. After that, you'll have the opportunity to raise your hand and ask a question to Professor Guerraoui. Lubaba, do you want to ask the question?
Yes. So the first question that we had, you actually covered a lot of them. So let's just start with one of the questions that we received a lot. How to cope with brain drain in Morocco? So la fuite des cerveaux. And do you know any initiative that has already been done by the government for that?
It's a very, very, very hard issue. The first obvious simplistic answer is let's not produce brains. And I even heard that. I heard some reasonable people saying, oh, we should not produce these brains because they will leave anyway. This will be a disaster, obviously. So the best way to fight the brain drain is to give somehow give these brains, these Moroccans, the wish and the motivation to work for Morocco. If they go abroad, fine. I just try to explain that they can do a lot. So let's not try to fight it too much. Let's just produce more brains. Of course, these brains will go back to Morocco if that's the plan, if they have good jobs, and we need to help them good jobs. But good jobs are not produced out of thin air. This is what development is about. So if we want to fight this problem or this issue or whatever we want to call it, we need to produce great jobs opportunities in Morocco. And that is something you as a student from Polytechnique, from EPFL, from whatever, you can contribute in addressing by creating your company or part of your company in Morocco.
Okay, thank you for this answer. So we would like to ask you some more industry-focused questions. So I know it's like your field of expertise. So someone asked, is there a future for blockchain technology in Morocco?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So many of you have no clue what blockchain technology is about. Remember Bitcoin, underlying Bitcoin, there was this protocol or system or infrastructure called the blockchain. And what we might hate Bitcoin, but the underlying technology is extremely important for two reasons. One of them is that it enables to store information in a transparent manner. And this is extremely important if we want, for example, the administration to be transparent and fight corruption in it, etc. So this is something very important. It's a new way of storing information to make it secure, transparent, and highly available. And the second one, it's a rather cheap, or it can be a cheap way to store information. Bitcoin is very energy consuming, but there are other alternatives that will enable you to implement blockchain, alternatives to how to store the information in a much, much cheaper way. So there is clearly a future in Morocco because it's rather cheap, it could be cheap, and it's badly needed for all kinds of activities where the information need to be secure, transparent, and reliable.
Thank you very much for that. What do you think about AI and its application in emerging markets such as Morocco?
So it's important to recall so I told you that I wrote a book on Al-Hassan al-Hussein. I also wrote recently a book called l'IA sur un transat. Turin à la plage, trying to explain what AI is. And my definition of AI, which is the definition of Alan Turing, is the following. AI is the ability of a machine, a computer, to solve a problem that we thought, we believed can only be solved by human. So some time ago, machines solved AI, they could beat the champions in chess. So we said that's AI. Later on, AI or machines, they could beat the champion of Go. We said that's AI. But now nobody would consider chess AI. Maybe in the near future, nobody will consider ChatGPT as AI. So what is important is the computer industry. This is crucial. So the question could have been, how can the computer industry or computing in general help the development of Morocco? And it can help it a lot. Why? Again, because it's cheap. The Industrial Revolution required oil fields and all kinds of huge investment and actually natural resources to exploit. Computing doesn't need anything. You write an algorithm on your iPhone and you can beat Garry Kasparov in chess. You can maybe develop a vaccine if you knew the algorithm. So it's a rather cheap investment revolution, and also at the same time with huge application. So my personal belief is that everybody in Morocco should be studying computer systems.
Touching upon that a bit, what are the leading sectors in Morocco and how can we develop the skills accordingly?
It's a good question. I don't, as I said in the very beginning, for those who came late, what I'm saying today, only commit myself and only committing myself to what I said. I'm not representing anyone, any commission, any whatsoever. And I have very, very limited knowledge. Leading sectors, and again, my view is a very naive, maybe view. Clearly, the green hydrogen and more general energy is something extremely important. Water desalinization is extremely important as well. Computing industry is extremely important. So these are only three I mentioned here. So if you are considering doing a PhD, you may want to ask yourself if what you're planning to do could have some impact on Morocco. I just mentioned three, but there could be other.
And how could UM6P contribute to it?
I might repeat myself, but I believe computing is definitely an area where we should invest. But when we say invest, it's very important to be careful what we mean. Some people sometimes believe that investing in an area means building a huge technopark or something, walls, or buying huge machines. But investing, in my opinion, means educating people who are going to do computing or green energy or water or whatever. So investing means educating people. And the places or the areas where we need to educate people are at least these three that I just pointed out. But again, there are many others, and I'm sure some colleagues at UM6P or EPFL will hate me because I forgot their area.
And so this question speaks a lot to myself, but in general, how would you challenge the healthcare? What are the challenges in the healthcare industry in Morocco, and how can graduates, bring something new to this sector?
I think there are at least two issues there. One of them is the logistics. It seems to me a logistic. When I see some, especially the poor people, waiting in huge lines before getting even to see a doctor who would sometimes tell them go home without even spending the time to look at them. This is a pure logistic question, which has little to do actually about medicine. But it seems to be a recurrent problem that we might need to address with logistic solutions, where to put the hospitals, where to put this and that. And maybe computing industry can help there, because sometimes it's sufficient to just talk or have a visio with some doctor to basically say, don't worry about this, don't worry about that, or you have absolutely to come to the doctor, or even telemedicine can be extremely important. That's one part. The other part is what we call the bio area in general, and in particular the biocomputing, where again the computing industry, sorry to bring back things to what I know, can be amazingly helpful in actually inventing new medicines and new ways to cure some diseases in a maybe cheaper, adaptive, and more local manner. And this is something that I believe could be an amazing future for Morocco. EPFL, for example, launched recently, 10 years ago, a new branch called life sciences, which is becoming extremely popular. Maybe we could think of having branches of life sciences in Morocco that bring the computing industry, the deep tech, together with medicine to think of new ways to cure people that is adapted to the constraint we have.
Right, thank you very much. And finally, the last section, the last subject we found a lot in the forum was entrepreneurial focused question. And I would like to ask you then, how do you see the startup ecosystem growing in the next 5 years in Morocco?
It's a difficult question because I don't know I'm definitely not a startup person. I created a startup when I was in the US because everybody was creating a startup, and it was a disaster because none of us has an entrepreneur sense. How is the startup ecosystem doing in Morocco? I think on the good face, it seems to be Morocco is an extremely vibrant country. You can compare it to other countries that are surrounding it. Morocco is very vibrant because that's how it has been somehow developed in the last years. We didn't have a strong communist party telling people to keep their ideas to themselves. So there is this débrouille in some areas of Casablanca that you can feel in other areas. So there is this potential. Now, the notion of startup doesn't really exist in Morocco, which poses a problem to small companies. So, for example, when you have to respond to a call, an appel d'offres, if you are too small, then the government is not going to give you this mandate that maybe let you leave. And this is a problem in Morocco, because if you look at the startups in the US, unlike what many people think, it's actually the government that makes them grow. The first contracts of many companies, startup companies, are basically with the army or with the NSA or with constitutions like that. In France is the same. In Switzerland is the same. The administration of Switzerland gives a lot of confidence, has a lot of confidence into startups. So we need maybe to revise this notion of a startup and try to convince those who has the money, which is basically to some extent the government and the big company, to trust the startups. And that goes through some change in regulations and not requiring anymore that the company needs to have 10 years of experience or needs to have done this or that project in order to gain a new mandate.
So that was all what we gathered. We have one question in the chat that we can maybe ask, and then the people in the call can raise their hand and ask their question directly. So the question that we have in the chat was, how does Morocco compare to other countries in terms of career development, opportunities, and outcomes? And what can be learned from other contexts?
It's a very good question. I want to say that for you guys, Morocco compares extremely well for you guys. When you get from Polytechnique or MIT or Imperial or EPFL, Morocco is I would not say paradise, but again, compared to others, again, because Morocco values diplomas very well, despite all what we can say about patronizing or clientelism or whatever. Now, for other kinds of jobs, in particular for what I would call low qualified jobs, clearly Morocco is not doing very well. And that could be a place where you can contribute eventually, hopefully, either in Morocco or elsewhere, by somehow helping those who didn't have the chance to get your education and your diploma to transform their knowledge into something with a high added value. And if you create a company, maybe you can do that, but without creating a company, by participating into various activities, you can probably help do that. So the answer is, for you, absolutely. For others with low qualified profiles, Morocco doesn't compete and doesn't compare well, but there is no fatality. This could change. For example, what École 1337 is doing is amazing, because it's creating some new jobs that probably would help students that otherwise wouldn't have gotten the chance to even find a job, maybe find good jobs. But that's just an example.
So we have a question from someone. Lina, if you want to ask your question.
Hi, Professor. Thanks a lot for the talk. It was very insightful, and I really resonated with what you said about making the most out of your degree. And so my question would be, what would you give? What advice would you give yourself if you had to begin your undergraduate studies again? What advice would you give your younger self?
It's a good question. I picked computer science by pure chance. I had never seen a computer before starting computer science, simply because an uncle of mine told me, if you want to find a job, that's probably the best thing to do. And I was definitely not in this mood of, oh, I need to do something that I love. I had no clue what computing was about, so I couldn't love computing. So I just picked something that I did, and I don't regret that. I think it was pragmatic. What I probably regret is that maybe I played too much football. Maybe this is what many of you are doing with video games, instead of learning more during those years. Maybe I could have learned more philosophy, more soft skills, more mathematics. So probably I spent too much time. I'm not saying you should not do sport. I spend a lot of time doing sport, but maybe I should have exploited those years to learn other things, other what is called soft skills. Usually they're not soft.
Thank you.
Football is always a great idea. Lina, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor. I love the talk. And my question relates to how us young students can have an impact. So I know that Morocco has a big role in fighting climate change, but I was wondering how you think us students can have our own impact. Because, for example, what I learned is that in the UK, oftentimes people build a startup to build a new solution to climate change. So I was wondering how you think us students can have an impact in Morocco. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great question. And unfortunately, my ignorance is huge in that area. I definitely believe this is a very, very important area, but I really have little clue about, except what I hear about desalination d'eau de mer, for example. Is there a way that you can do that without damaging the ocean? Things like that. But the only thing that comes to my mind is push your studies to the limit. If you like that topic, why don't you do a PhD on how to save water, or how to do desalination without polluting the ocean, or things like that? But I'm sorry, this is extremely narrow answer, reflecting my ignorance.
Not at all. Thank you so much. That was already very insightful.
Omar, if you want to ask your question.
Yeah, so my question is more research related and concerns more Moroccan students that are either considering doing a PhD or doing a PhD or almost done with their PhD. So, so for those who are considering going for faculty position and doing research as a career, would it be better to go back to Morocco? I see a lot of people going to UM6P to take faculty positions, or is it better to stay outside? And whether staying in Morocco or outside, does it affect your likelihood of success? And given that you're successful, is it better to be a successful researcher in a Moroccan university or in an outside university?
Yeah, very good questions. There have been many questions. So first, let me just clarify one thing. Doing a PhD does not necessarily mean you want to have a faculty position. So doing a PhD means you become worldwide expert in a field. So that's why I'm really pushing you to consider that. And unfortunately, we somehow suffer from the French perception that PhD is for those who didn't find a job. But even France has changed that mindset, and now it's different. So unfortunately, in Morocco, we are lagging behind, and we are inheriting that. So getting a PhD is becoming expert. Now, faculty positions, where do you take them? Definitely with UM6P, Morocco has been extremely competitive at least the European level in terms of salary, work conditions, etc. There are some other places like L'Université Internationale or Euromed in Fès, and even the public schools in Morocco are catching up. Initially, they were doing extremely well. They somehow lost the pace, but maybe now things are changing. So I believe that Morocco is a good place to be a professor. It's a good place because salaries are very reasonable. I mean, at UM6P, they are just highly competitive, EUR, etc. But even the working conditions are good. Now, you have to pick your topic, and that's why it's extremely important to be pragmatic. You have to pick a topic where you can do things initially with the small number of students, small number of colleagues, because it is in many cases just starting. If you want to work on aerospace, clearly it's going to be challenging to start a huge career. But try to be extremely pragmatic, and the decision has to be, ask yourself, don't lie to yourself, where do I want to be? If you decide you want to be in Morocco, just go there, and il faut assumer. You should not start screaming, oh, I came back to help my country, nobody allows me to do with this or that. No, no. You have to prendre ses responsabilités. So commit to your decision.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
So, thank you. Next question, Lina.
Hi. So my question was more about whether you would have any piece of advice or whether you know any actions that students should undertake to expand better a field that is unexploited in Morocco. For instance, bioinformatics, or many of those fields are like really important and growing recently, but are basically existent in Morocco. Like what, in our level as students, what can we do about it?
I don't know, if I were you, as I pointed out already, sorry to be repeating myself, I would first try to become an expert in the field and then try to gather with other people with the same interests. So these kinds of associations you have are extremely useful. And please try to keep them up in various places, because these associations will enable you to meet people with the same interest. And if you are a critical mass, then the game changes, because you can decide to create some center in Morocco on that very important topic. And I'm pretty sure you can get help. Of course, one has to try and try again and try again. But eventually, if you are a critical mass of smart, knowledgeable people in such an important area, I like to think that it always works. But please remember, remove the frustration if you fail the first time, the second time, because these things happen and will happen. Remember, against Belgium, Ziyech scored. We all thought it was there, but then the referee says, no, it's not, it's an offside. And under a different mentality, we could have said, oh, the referee is racist or this or that. And no, you have to try again and try again and try again. And then we scored again and then we scored again. So remember that.
Thank you very much.
Zied?
Hi, thank you so much for the insightful talk. I found it to be very informative and I really did enjoy it. It's funny how my question is actually related to something that you just mentioned. I'm an aerospace engineering student, and I want to make it kind of realistic. I know it's hard, like, to bring in skills in industry that's not yet established in Morocco, but I would love to know, like, how would it be possible to kind of like make in those foundation blocks for an industry such as aerospace in Morocco, because I do believe that I want to bring in my perspective in that industry one day to my country, because basically here being in the US, like you're basically serving other countries with your skills in that field, and I would like to know if there's any way you can kind of be one of those people who bring in those skills in Morocco back. Thank you.
Yeah, so again, it's not my field. I can say two things, however, nevertheless. One of them is that there are some I would say preliminary project, for example, to have the internet through some satellites that will transmit the internet to various Moroccan places. And so there are certain things in that area. I'm not expert. The other one is what I just pointed out. Alone is very hard. If you, however, manage to get a critical mass of people, and I know a couple of persons in Berkeley and in Italy and other places, Moroccan, who are interested in this field, the story changes. You can try to meet with people from CGUN, I mean the patronat, Marocan to discuss with them. Sometimes they are extremely creative. You can discuss with universities like UM6Ps or public universities to try to create a center, but you need patience and motivation to try to do it. But the third alternative, which is to do something in the US and then try to have an impact in Morocco. I mean, the car industry in Morocco is an amazing example. It started by delocalization, and then now Morocco is producing its own cars. So who knows, maybe one day you would create a big aerospace company in the US and then create part of it in Morocco, and that could make of Morocco building its own satellites. But again, I'm just a dreamer in those areas, especially those I don't know.
Okay, so maybe we can take one last question or a couple of last questions, because I know that some people wanna go and eat. So no, Aman?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rachid, for your talk. It's very inspiring. Quick question, since you mentioned ChatGPT, I was wondering if, do you think that this wave of AI hype that we're living currently is just a transitory phase, something like metaverse? Or do you think there is more to it? And how would you suggest Moroccan students
I don't
to
think
deal with
it's
that?
just a hype. I think it's the computing revolution that has several instances, as I pointed out earlier, chess, medicine, ChatGPT, and we will see many more of that. So this is not a hype. This is something extremely important, and it's coming. How can Morocco handle it? First, we need to face it, because there are many jobs in Morocco that might disappear, many outsourcing jobs because of this. So we have to think about that. As a student, for you guys, I think the first thing to do is to understand what this AI hype is, and more generally, what is machine learning? What is federated learning? How these things work? Even if you are not becoming the lingua franca of the future. So I think the first thing you need to do is to understand these things very well. And if you have the opportunity to do a PhD oriented towards machine learning, whether it's
I would like to know what do you think about the level of research in UM6P? And if there is the innovative PhD subjects.
University, the level is very good. And the reason why the level is very good is because the professors that have been hired are very good. Again, there are other universities in Morocco that has hired very good professors, and I can name a few, but you asked about UM6P, the hiring was amazing. And also the hiring of the students. So now the PhD students at UM6P are extremely good. They come from the best schools of the country. So I'm really optimistic and hopeful that this is continue. I just hope that we keep we keep surfing, or professors and students keep surfing on that wave, and the bureaucracy doesn't take over, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So I'm quite optimistic.
Thank you very much. We have 2-3 questions in the chat. If you want to read them and have a quick look at it, otherwise there is no problem about that. I understand that.
I can try. You talked about how they will be highly validated and that, but what about young professionals who don't have such degrees but have? So somebody asked about professionals who don't have very high degrees and have considerable experience in big companies abroad. Ayub is asking this question. Indeed, I gave the example of big degrees because Morocco seemed to be giving a lot of value to big degree. Definitely, it's not as easy if you come without a degree. However, the people I knew in Morocco seem to be extremely pragmatic. I mean, the CEOs of companies I could meet, but I'm not a CEO person. I don't know many of them, but those I met are extremely pragmatic, and they are looking for people with good high experience. So I like to think that it should be no problem. But again, don't take my word, I'm not an expert. Would it be better to launch your startup in Europe and then expand to Morocco? This is Ilyas. Absolutely. This is my recommendation today, because the market will be bigger. So the answer is yes. Please, you should create your startup in Europe or in the US and then expand to Morocco, because you will have a bigger market. That's as simple as it is. Last question, how can students and youth in general also participate politically and contribute even more effectively? So obvious way to participate politically is to go to Morocco and be there somehow as enter parties and whatever. But as I tried to point out earlier, becoming someone in the country where you live, you can have at least as much impact and maybe even more. Also, just being a nice human being, you are an ambassador. And to conclude maybe this talk, nous sommes attendus au tournant. We are expected at the turn. I don't know whether the translation is good or not. If somebody breaks a window by playing soccer outside in France or England or whatever, if those people who are doing that are Swedish, nobody is going to say, oh, they did that, and of course they are Swedes. Nobody will remember they are Swedes. If you do that, everybody would say, oh, of course they are Moroccan. So clearly you are expected at the turn. So try to be a good ambassador by having a low profile, being very good and being the best in your school, but realizing that you are expected at the turn, and therefore your behavior has to be exemplary. And the last episode you probably have seen, the Moroccan team was in Spain yesterday and the day before, is still in Spain, and somebody from the hotel insulted the players on the internet. And what Regragui said was extremely wise. He said, let's not sue this person. Let's just, I'm just explaining to that person that my culture, my religion taught me to be forgiving, to be nice, and we're not suing this person. So try to keep that in mind. Be the best and be humble. No fight, no false pride. Just be the best and humble. This would be my conclusion. And I don't like people who say iftar. It's ftor. Let's be Moroccan. Iftar comes from the east. And we have no problem with the Eastern people, but we say Iftar and we say Ramadan Mubarak or Mubarak Ramadan and not Ramadan Kareem. Okay, have a nice evening all. Nice meeting you.
Thank you very
and hopefully
much.
there
Thank you
could be
very
another
much.
episode.